Hi guys, Adam Manley here, Business Development Manager at Good Life Property Management. 2020 is such an exciting year, both here at Good Life and throughout the greater property management industry. But one very important new thing are all of the new pieces of legislation that are coming into effect here in 2020. And we really think that you guys should know about some of them. So we compiled a short list for 5 of the laws that you probably didn't know that are going into effect in 2020. And we'll kind of give you guys a brief overview of some of them here. The first is AB 827, which specifically addresses the issue of recycling bins for apartment buildings with 5 or more units. So if you're a landlord who's involved in the multifamily industry, if you have a large building, you probably already have a recycling bin there, but for some of these smaller buildings, you will need to provide this moving forward. The recycling bin needs to be clearly labeled near where the residents currently use the trash bin, so it needs to be in the same area, and it also needs to have a small diagram showing them what items are able to be placed inside of the recycling bin. So once again, that's AB 827, and that affects recycling bins at properties with 5 or more units. So the second really important law that has come into effect this year, and while it was passed back in 2018, some of the testing requirements are now coming to light here starting in January of 2020, and that is AB 2370. It's specifically geared around landlords who rent properties to tenants who run a daycare facility. And one of the biggest changes about this law is starting in 2020, you as the landlord are now responsible to get the water tested inside of the property for any potential lead exposure or contamination. So you need to do that now and every 5 years moving forward, specifically if you're a landlord who rents to tenants who use the property as a child daycare facility. This is a little bit of a complex bill that was passed, so we'll include a lot more information on this particular one below. And again, that's AB 2370. The third bill we wanted to highlight is specifically around electrical vehicle charging stations, and that is SB 638. So if you have a tenant who has signed and executed a lease, renewed or extended after July 1 of 2015, you as the landlord now have to allow your tenant to install an electrical vehicle charging station at your property. This can still be done at the tenant's expense, but if you have a property with a lease executed after that date, you now have to allow the tenant to install that at your particular property. The next law we really wanted to highlight is AB 1399, and that is more specifically geared towards multifamily landlords and investors. And this particular bill is addressing a loophole in the Ellis Act. So the Ellis Act came into existence back in 1985, and it was put into place so landlords who needed to withdraw a unit from the rental market could evict a tenant living in one of the units and then just withdraw that particular unit from the rental market altogether. So AB 1399 addresses this loophole and closes it. So now if a landlord wanted to remove just one unit from the rental market, he would actually need to remove the entire building or all of the units in the building from the rental market altogether. So it's a pretty substantial change within the law itself. There are also additional requirements for the notices that you need to serve the tenant if you are going to be withdrawing a unit from the rental market. It now extends the notice period to 120 days, and there are also additional restrictions if the unit is occupied by an elderly person or by someone who is disabled. And once again, that's AB 1399. Now the last bill we wanted to highlight in this video, but certainly not the last piece of legislation that's coming into play in 2020, is AB 74. And what AB 74 does, it's part of the Budget Act of 2019, and it's essentially going to set aside $20 million for tenants to use in landlord-tenant disputes. So this can be used for pre-eviction, eviction cases, counseling, mediation, attorney's fees. So that's something really big that's going to be changing this year. So if you're a landlord who's taking a tenant to landlord-tenant court or involved in a landlord-tenant lawsuit, most likely these tenants are going to be better prepared and be coming with legal counsel. So again, another really big change in 2020. So those are some of the 5 laws that we felt you guys really needed to know to stay on top of your business here in 2020. We're gonna have a lot more information about each one in the blog below the video here, and stay tuned for more about new laws and content coming out in 2020. Thank you.